They say the person you marry isn't always the person you end up with. But I never imagined those words would become my reality in the cruelest way possible. This is the story of how a 20-year marriage ended with a single phone call 3 days before our anniversary. My name is Jennifer. I'm 47 years old, and this happened 2 years ago. What I'm about to share changed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and the man I spent half my life with. Michael and I met when we were 25. He was an accountant at a small firm, and I was working as a nurse at the local hospital. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, and I remember thinking he had the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. He was quiet, thoughtful, and made me feel safe. 6 months later, he proposed on a beach at sunset. It was perfect. We were perfect. Or so I thought. We built a good life together. We had 2 children, Emily and Jake. We bought a house in the suburbs with a white picket fence and a golden retriever. Michael worked his way up to partner at his firm. I eventually became a nurse manager. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. We took family vacations every summer. We hosted Thanksgiving dinners. We were the couple other people looked at and said, "That's what I want." But somewhere along the way, things shifted. I can't pinpoint exactly when it started. Maybe it was gradual, so slow that I didn't notice the ground disappearing beneath my feet. Michael started working late more often. He became distant, distracted. When I'd try to talk to him, he'd say he was stressed about work. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? We'd been together for 2 decades. Trust was the foundation we'd built everything on. Our 20th anniversary was coming up in 3 days. I had planned everything months in advance. I'd made reservations at the restaurant where we had our first date. I'd bought a new dress. I'd even arranged for the kids to stay with my sister so we could have the weekend to ourselves. I thought maybe this would be the reset we needed. A chance to reconnect, to remember why we fell in love in the first place. 2 days before the anniversary, I noticed Michael seemed especially tense. He barely spoke at dinner. He went to bed early without kissing me goodnight. I told myself it was just work stress. He'd been working on a big merger for months. Once that was done, things would go back to normal. I was so naive. The next morning, I woke up to find Michael already gone. He'd left early without saying goodbye. I sent him a text reminding him about our anniversary dinner, asking if he was excited. He didn't respond for hours. When he finally did, all he wrote was, "We need to talk." 4 words. 4 words that made my stomach drop like a stone in water. I called him immediately. He didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. By lunchtime, I was starting to panic. Something was very wrong. I could feel it in my bones, that primal instinct that tells you your world is about to change forever. He finally called me back at 3 in the afternoon. I was at work, in the middle of checking a patient's vitals. I excused myself and stepped into an empty conference room, my hands already shaking. "Michael? What's going on? You're scaring me." There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. Then he spoke, and his voice was cold, colder than I'd ever heard it. "Jennifer, I can't do this anymore." "Can't do what?" "Michael, talk to me. What's happening?" This us, the pretending. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. "What are you talking about?" "Pretending what?" "That I'm happy. That I'm still in love with you. That you're still the woman I married." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually had to sit down. My legs wouldn't hold me anymore. "Michael, where is this coming from? We can work through this." "Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. We always have." "No." His voice was firm now, almost angry. "We can't fix this. I don't want to fix this." "I've been miserable for years, Jennifer. Years. And I'm done." "Years?" I whispered. "You've been unhappy for years and you never said anything." What was I supposed to say? That you'd let yourself go? But you're not the person I fell in love with anymore? That coming home to you feels like a chore? Each word was a knife? I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't the man I married. The man I married was kind, gentle, patient. Michael, please, don't do this. Not like this. Let's talk in person. Let's go to counseling. We can save this. I don't want to save it, he said flatly. I'm done, Jennifer. I've been done for a long time. I should have ended this years ago. What about our anniversary? I asked desperately. What about the dinner I planned? What about us? He laughed, actually laughed. It was bitter and cruel. You still don't get it, do you? There's no us anymore. You're no longer the woman I married. Don't show up to that anniversary dinner. I won't be there. Before I could respond, before I could beg or scream or demand answers, he hung up. I sat in that conference room for 20 minutes, staring at my phone, waiting for it to ring again. Waiting for him to call back and say it was a mistake, that he didn't mean it, that we could work through this. But the phone stayed silent. Hey, I know this story is heavy, and I really appreciate you sticking with me through this. If you're watching from somewhere in the world right now, drop a comment and let me know where you're from. It means a lot to know I'm not alone in sharing these stories. And if this resonates with you in any way, please hit that subscribe button. These stories matter, and your support helps me keep sharing them. When I finally got myself together enough to drive home, I found the house empty. Michael's car wasn't in the driveway. I walked inside, and that's when I noticed it. His closet was half empty. His toiletries were gone from the bathroom. The framed photo of us on our wedding day that had sat on his nightstand for 20 years was face down in the trash can. He'd been planning this. While I was at work planning our anniversary celebration, he'd been packing his things and preparing to leave. I called him 17 times that night. He didn't answer once. I texted him, begged him to come home, to explain, to give me a chance to understand. Nothing. Radio silence. The next day was supposed to be our anniversary. I woke up alone in the bed we'd shared for 2 decades. The restaurant reservation was in 6 hours. I kept hoping he'd change his mind, that he'd come home and tell me this was all a horrible misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew better. I got dressed anyway. I put on the new dress I bought. I did my makeup, even though my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the mascara wand. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. When had I stopped seeing myself clearly? When had I become someone my own husband couldn't stand to be around? I drove to the restaurant at exactly 6 o'clock, the time our reservation was set for. I parked across the street and waited. Part of me still believed he might show up, that this was some kind of test or a breakdown or something that could still be fixed. At 6:15, I saw him. My heart leapt. He came. He actually came. But then I saw her. Michael walked into the restaurant with a woman I'd never seen before. She was younger than me, maybe in her mid-30s, blonde, thin, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. And Michael was smiling at her, actually smiling. The way he used to smile at me. I watched through the restaurant window as the hostess led them to a table. Our table. The same table I'd reserved for us. Michael pulled out her chair. He ordered wine. He reached across the table and held her hand, and that's when I understood. This wasn't a sudden decision. This wasn't a breakdown or a midlife crisis. This was planned, calculated. He'd already moved on, probably months ago. Maybe even years ago, like he said. While I was working double shifts at the hospital to help pay for our kids' college funds, while I was planning anniversary dinners and trying to keep our family together, he was building a whole new life without me. I sat in that car for 2 hours, watching my husband celebrate what should have been our anniversary with another woman. I watched them laugh. I watched them kiss. I watched him be happy in a way he hadn't been with me in years. When I finally drove home, I was numb, beyond tears, beyond anger, just hollow. The divorce papers arrived 3 days later. He'd already filed, already had a lawyer, already had everything prepared. 20 years of marriage reduced to a stack of legal documents delivered by a stranger. The next few months were the darkest of my life. Michael moved in with his girlfriend almost immediately. Apparently, they'd been seeing each other for over a year. A year of lies. A year of him coming home to me every night, kissing me goodnight, telling me he loved me, all while he was planning his exit strategy. Our kids were devastated. Emily was 19 and Jake was 17. Old enough to understand what was happening, but young enough to feel like their entire foundation had crumbled. They blamed me at first. Michael had spun the narrative in his favor, painting me as the wife who'd let herself go, who'd become boring, who'd stopped trying. The kids heard his side before they heard mine. I lost weight without trying, stopped sleeping, went through the motions at work like a ghost. My sister practically moved in with me because she was terrified I'd fall apart completely. But here's the thing about rock bottom, it's solid. And eventually, if you stay there long enough, you realize you can build on it. I started going to therapy, not couples therapy, just therapy for me. I needed to understand how I'd missed the signs, how I'd let myself become so invisible in my own marriage. My therapist asked me questions I'd never asked myself. When was the last time I'd done something just for me? When was the last time I'd felt valued, not as a wife or mother or nurse, but just as Jennifer? I couldn't remember. So I started small. I joined a book club. I started taking walks in the morning before work. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with over the years. I got a new haircut. Started wearing clothes I actually liked instead of just whatever was practical. And slowly, so slowly, I barely noticed it happening. I started to feel like a person again. About 8 months after Michael left, I got a call from Emily. She was crying. She'd gone to visit Michael and his girlfriend at their new apartment, and she'd overheard them fighting. Michael was complaining about money, about how the divorce was costing him too much, about how his girlfriend was high maintenance and expensive. Emily heard him say he'd made a mistake, that he'd given up a good thing for something that looked better on the surface but was hollow underneath. Emily apologized to me that day. She said she'd been wrong to blame me. She said she'd watched me rebuild myself over the past months and realized I was stronger than she'd ever given me credit for. I won't lie and say that conversation didn't feel good. Validation, especially from your children, is powerful. But I'd already started to realize something important. I didn't need Michael to regret leaving me to know my worth. A year after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Michael at the grocery store. It was the first time we'd seen each other in person since everything fell apart. He looked tired, older. The girlfriend was gone, apparently. She'd left him for someone with more money. He tried to make small talk, asked how I was doing. I kept my answers short, polite. As I was about to leave, he stopped me. "Jennifer, I need to tell you something. I made a mistake, a huge mistake. I threw away 20 good years for something that was never real. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I looked at him for a long moment. This man I'd loved for half my life. This man who'd destroyed me with 4 words on a phone call. And I realized I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even pity. Just nothing. "I appreciate you saying that, Michael," I said calmly. "But I've moved on. I hope you figure out what you're looking for. I really do. But I'm not it anymore." And I walked away. If you've made it this far in the story, thank you. Really. Sharing these experiences isn't easy, but knowing someone out there is listening makes it worthwhile. If this story touched you in any way, I really appreciate it if you could leave a like on this video. It helps more people find these stories, and maybe someone out there needs to hear that they're not alone in what they're going through. That was 2 years ago. I'm 49 now. I'm still a nurse manager. I'm still a mother. But I'm also something I forgot I could be, and happy. Actually, genuinely happy. I'm dating someone now. His name is Richard. He's a teacher. He's kind and patient and makes me laugh. He thinks I'm beautiful exactly as I am. He doesn't compare me to some idealized version of who I was 20 years ago. He likes me for who I am right now, in this moment. My kids are thriving. Emily graduated college last year and is starting her career. Jake is a sophomore and finally seems to have processed everything. They have a civil relationship with their father, but they don't pretend his choices didn't hurt them. Looking back, I understand now that Michael did me a favor. Not intentionally, of course. But by leaving, by forcing me to rebuild my life from scratch, he gave me something I didn't know I'd lost. Myself. I spent 20 years trying to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect everything. I molded myself to fit what I thought everyone else needed me to be, and in the process, I disappeared. I became so focused on being the woman Michael married that I forgot to grow into the woman I was becoming. The truth is, he was right about one thing. I wasn't the woman he married anymore. But that wasn't the failure he made it out to be. People change. They grow. They evolve. That's not a betrayal. It's life. The tragedy wasn't that I changed. The tragedy was that he couldn't or wouldn't grow alongside me. I've learned that real love doesn't demand you stay frozen in time. Real love celebrates your growth. Real love says, I fell in love with who you were, and I'm excited to love who you're becoming. Michael wanted a museum piece, a preserved version of a 25-year-old girl who didn't exist anymore. He couldn't handle the reality of a 47-year-old woman with stretch marks and gray hair and opinions and needs. So he traded me in for a newer model, only to discover that people aren't cars. You can't just upgrade to the latest version and expect it to run smoothly. But here's what I really want anyone going through something similar to understand. When someone tells you you're not enough, they're really telling you that they're not enough for you. When someone abandons you because you've changed, they're really showing you that they were never equipped to handle real, lasting love in the first place. The end of my marriage wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I'm the author instead of just a supporting character in someone else's narrative. I still think about that phone call sometimes. Those words, "You're no longer the woman I married," don't show up to that anniversary dinner. At the time, they destroyed me. They made me question everything about myself, my worth, my value. But now I wear them differently because you know what? He's absolutely right. I'm not the woman he married. I'm better. I'm stronger. I'm more fully myself than I've ever been. The woman he married would have begged him to come back, would have shrunk herself down even smaller to try to fit into his idea of acceptable, would have apologized for having the audacity to age, to change, to exist as a fully dimensional human being. But the woman I am now, she knows better. She knows her worth isn't determined by whether one person can see it. She knows that change isn't failure, it's growth. She knows that sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is walking away and forcing you to stand on your own. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you one more thing. If this story resonated with you, if you've been through something similar, or if you know someone who needs to hear this message, please share this video. Leave a comment sharing your own story if you feel comfortable. This community we're building here is about more than just stories. It's about connection. It's about knowing we're not alone in the hard things we go through. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. There are more stories coming, and I'd love to have you along for the journey. I don't know what the next 20 years will bring, but I know this. They'll be mine. Written by me, lived by me, enjoyed by me. Not as someone's wife or someone's idea of who I should be, but as myself. Fully, unapologetically myself. And that's worth more than any anniversary dinner could ever be. To anyone out there going through a betrayal, a divorce, or any kind of devastating loss, I see you. Your pain is real and valid. But I promise you this, there is a version of you on the other side of this pain who is stronger than you can imagine right now. A version who looks back and realizes that what felt like an ending was actually a beginning. You are not the woman he married or the man she married or whoever they expected you to always be. You're something better. You're becoming who you were always meant to be without the weight of someone else's limited vision holding you back. And that person is absolutely worth celebrating. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And remember, your story isn't over, not even close. The best chapters might still be unwritten,